Hello and welcome to the Mansfield Town Church YouTube channel. Today we are going to be ranking every single one of Nigel Clough's transfers at Mansfield Town. From the legends to the loans we'd rather forget, every single one of them is in this video. If you enjoy content like this, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know below in the comments if there's players that you would have liked higher or lower in this list, or any that you'd have had in the legendary status, or some where you'd rather forget. Let's get into the video. So then, you can see below at the bottom of the screen is all of the Nigel Clough signings at the Stags from him joining partway through the 2020-21 season. Some you might even not recognise. Some of them could barely find a photo of them in their Stags kit, so I do apologise for that. But we're going to start off by just quickly looking at the categories. We've got legendary, very good, decent, didn't work out, and terrible. So you'll see players in all of those categories. We're going to start off though with a loanee from 2020-21, Oliver Sarkic from Blackpool. He's going to have to go in the terrible section. I'm sorry. He played, I think, 4 games. And then we've got another loanee again, which would be Jamie Pardington, which a few of you won't even remember. But yeah, he's for this list he's in terrible. He made 2 appearances. So yeah, sorry Nigel. Moving slightly better, a lot better. Quinny, Stephen Quinn. Wow, we spoke about him in the retained list video that we've released this week. Which if you haven't seen, I'll put a link in the description to both of those videos, where we do talk in depth about Quinny. But I could probably do a 20-minute video just on Stephen Quinn, which is probably a good idea. But he's one of the best signings this club has ever had, let alone Nigel's signing. So Quinny signed initially on loan and then signed permanently. 100% deserves to be straight top of this list. Absolutely. Moving on to Keaton Ward, who a few of you will say, well, Nigel didn't sign him. He was part of our youth setup, and he was, but he moved to Barnsley and was then signed back from Barnsley by Nigel Clough. I wouldn't suggest Keaton Ward by any stretch of the imagination was terrible. Didn't really work out at the Stags. He's playing fantastically well for Boston this season in the National League, as part of the Great Escape with old Mansfield Town manager Graham Coughlin, along with current player James Gale and also ex-player Jimmy Knowles as well. So quite the Stags contingent there. Didn't work out for the Stags, unfortunately. Not a terrible player, just didn't really work out. Jake Wright, couldn't even find a picture of him in the Stags kit. Certainly not a good enough one to use for this. So unfortunately, he's in an Oxford kit. Made 2 appearances for us that season. Signed probably out of necessity for a bit of cover, but just didn't work out. So unfortunately, yeah, he's going in the terrible category. Moving on to George Lapsley, who we signed on loan initially. He's up there, I think, very good for me. He's probably not quite legendary, but he was absolutely superb the following season, 21-22. Especially, I'm thinking the away game at Doncaster when we were in the way, and there was incredible. He played some fantastic football for us. Currently playing and just got promoted with Bradford after a spell at Gillingham. But brilliant signing for us, Lapsley. He's not quite legendary, but very, very good for me. George Shelvey from Forest. He was signed the following season, 21-22, when we reached the playoff final. I'm going to put him in. Didn't work out. I wouldn't say he was necessarily terrible. Didn't play many games. Just really get a chance to play, so I guess can't really class him as terrible, but it certainly wasn't a signing that worked out for the Stags. Moving on then to continuing into 21-22, we next have Jamie Murphy. Oh, this is a bit of a difficult one. Unfortunately for Jamie, despite being a brilliant player in his career, he wasn't very good for the Stags. He had a couple of fantastic games where his delivery and crossing and passing was unbelievable, but he did have. We made it quite clear, or we found out that his family was still up in Scotland while he was down here. So for me, he's going in that didn't work out. His performances were pretty poor, including the playoff final. But I feel a little bit like he wasn't terrible, but yeah, he wasn't great. So unfortunately for for Jamie and for Nigel, his going didn't work out. Matty Longstaff. Now, Matty Longstaff. Now, he scored a lot of goals and a lot of important goals. But his performances weren't always that great. He wasn't very good in the playoff final. Overall, I'd say it was a decent loan signing. Like I say, he did score some important goals, but I don't think he's quite on the par with how Lapsley, for example, performed for the club. So, and he was only here a few months on loan. So I'm going to put him in decent. I think it did work out. He certainly helped. So I wouldn't suggest he belongs any further down the list. But yeah, for me, let's keep him in decent. So, Richard Narty. Sorry, Richard. You're going to go in terrible. Signed with a lot of promise. I believe he was on loan from Burnley at the time. But yeah, not worked out at all for the Stags. When he did play, wasn't very good, and then got injured. And yeah, not a good sign at all. Will Forrester. So I thought Will actually was a decent signing, but he got injured and then never played again. So he has to go and it didn't work out because it didn't. His injury just completely put pay to that. Despite him, I think, being a very good player, and he went on to prove it at Port Vale after he left the Stags. I think he certainly would have been decent, if not a very good signing for us. But because of his injury, I can't put him any higher than that, unfortunately. Ryan Stirk. I thought Ryan Stirk actually was very good. I thought he was a really good player for the Stags when he signed on loan, and I think a lot of us would have had him back at the time. He was on loan from Birmingham at the time, but yeah, I thought he was very good actually. I thought he was a very good player and a very good signing for the Stags. Unfortunately, again, we couldn't make it permanent, but currently planning his trade for Walsall in League Two. So yeah, very good I think for Ryan. I think that's fair. Kieran Wallace. For me, I think he was a decent player. He got a lot of stick and he had a couple of injuries. But I think for that season, he did the job, and the following season, he did the job that was required of him. I wouldn't say it didn't work out. It didn't necessarily work out in the end, but I think as far as the time he was here, I think Kieran was decent. And him and John Joe O'Toole in the playoff semi-final at Northampton were incredible together. So he's going to go in decent. Lucas Akins, I think for his longevity, his lack of injuries, he scored some important goals. He's never let us down on the pitch, I don't think. I think he's very good. Disappointing with the amount of goals he's provided this season, albeit at times he has played at right back again. So for me, Akins is in the very good tier. Up next then we have John Joe O'Toole, who for me, I think he has to go in here. And I say that because when he joined us on a free transfer in 21-22, we'd lost or hadn't won in 14 games, and he signed for us just before the end of that run. And he just galvanised the whole team. He played at centre-half, which he hadn't played, in my understanding, before. And he was absolutely incredible. He was by far our best player for massive periods of that season. And he was one of the main reasons why, alongside the likes of Maka and Quinney, why we ended up in the playoff final. Could very easily have been promoted. His performance in the semi-final against Northampton were unbelievable. Disappointing how it all ended. He kind of got injured for a while and then didn't play, and then was released and eventually joined Wimbledon, but where he currently plays at the minute. But for me, for that one season alone is enough for him to be a legendary signing. And I think for the free signing, wages were probably high, but Nigel did an unbelievable job of bringing somebody in with that much quality and really galvanised that season. So legendary for me. Rhys Oates, I think you have to put in the very good section. He's had a couple of seasons of disappointment, but I think overall as a signing from that season, he's been very good for the Stags. Scored some very good goals. Scored a lot of goals when he's been fit. Still at the club, of course. But yeah, I think for me, Oates has been a very good signing. I don't think you can really argue with that massively. Elliot Hewitt, again, Elliot could probably gone a little bit higher if he hadn't been injured for a full season. Same with Oates. Player of the season before he got injured. Very close to probably being in this category with Quinney and John Joe O'Toole, but a fantastic signing from Clough, who's someone at the time when I saw, I thought he was okay at Grimsby, he was average at Notts County, but he's been superb for us. For me again, you can't argue. The only thing you could argue is whether he should be higher, but I think very good is about right. Ollie Hawkins. For me, I know he kind of scuppered our playoff chances in the final, getting sent off in the first half, but I wouldn't say he was a very good signing. He did okay up front, and then he got shifted centre half and did well for a period, but we could never work out, was he a striker, was he a centre back? I mean, for most players, people, he was a striker, but for Nigel, he was a centre half. But yeah, for me, decent. I wouldn't say it didn't work out, but yeah, decent. I wouldn't put him any higher than that for Ollie Hawkins. Ryan Burke, yeah, he wasn't very good, unfortunately. So for me, he ends up in the terrible category. Sorry, Ryan. Didn't get a massive load of chances, so maybe I'm being a bit harsh. Could be up here, but yeah, didn't work out and was pretty poor. Danny Johnson is an interesting one. For me, he lives down here. He, albeit scored the odd goal, I get the feeling, and I'm completely judging somebody off a person I've never met here, but he didn't seem to fit in with the other players, and it seemed to cause big issues with his contract. And yeah, just he upset the club for a while. Fans were split as well. So in terms of if you were judging purely a signing, I believe he left on a free as well. For me, it was terrible, unfortunately. Sorry, Nigel. Nathan Bishop, I think, was a good signing on loan. I'm not going to put him as very good, I don't think, because he still made a few errors. But he was a good goalkeeper. He was a decent signing. He stayed there for the season from Man United at the time. Yeah, decent signing. You could argue he's very good, but for me, decent, I think, for Bishop on that one. And then we move on to 22-23. We initially signed Christy Pym on loan and then signed him permanently. I don't think you can argue he's been anything other than a very good signing for us. Superb in his loan season. And then incredible in the playoff, in the promotion season, last season. Good start to this season, ended up a little bit poorly, and has been released at the end of this season. But yeah, overall, you can't argue with Christy Pym. It's been a very, very good signing for the Stags. Will Swan is our next player we're looking at here. And for me, he has been... swapped him around there by accident. He was decent. He was a decent signing. I wouldn't say it didn't work out. He scored some goals for us. Originally on loan from Forest, then signed permanently. We sold him for some money to Crawley. So, yeah, I think I certainly wouldn't say it didn't work out. And I also wouldn't say it was very good. So he sits somewhere in the middle. I think decent is where it's at for Will Swan, I think. Davis Keeler-Dunn, probably one of my favourite players of my entire life supporting the Stags. I've been going regular to games for, I think, 26 years, I think it is now, since my first game. And Keeler-Dunn has certainly got me off my seat more times than 99% of the players I've seen. You know, the likes of Wayne Cordon would have been my first sort of favourite outfield player. But Keeler-Dunn, absolutely immense for me, and would, in my opinion, top this list completely. Signed him for 20,000, I think it wasn't, and we've sold him for, something high in the six-figure category. Potentially get a sell-on clause if there is one if he leaves Barnsley. He's been their player of the season. He was our player of the season last season. One of Nigel Clough's, if not Nigel Clough's, best signing for me. Absolutely superb. Riley Harbottle. Loan signing, Riley Harbottle. I think he was a decent signing. I think he was good. I wouldn't say he was very good, but he was good. And then moved on after his loan spell here. So currently on loan at Wimbledon, or I don't know if he's permanent in Wimbledon, but he's playing for Wimbledon at the minute in League Two. Yeah, good, decent. I don't really want to say much more than decent. Louis Reed. Absolutely brilliant signing. I wouldn't quite put him as legendary with these three for the impact, but he's been a very, very good signing. Made a few mistakes this season, but who hasn't? Yeah, very good player. We got him on the cheap when Swindon, for some reason, offered him to us. Currently, he's been the captain as well this season. Yeah, very, very good signing. And with a couple more years, could maybe even move up this list. But yeah, very, very good signing. Next on our list is Callum Johnson. It didn't really work out for us, did it? He played a few games, got injured a heck of a lot. But I wouldn't say it was a terrible signing because he showed a bit of promise, but we didn't, spend or waste a lot of money. but yeah, for me, just didn't work out, unfortunately. Alfie Kilgore. Alfie Kilgore for me has been a great signing. You can't argue with the performances that he had when he first joined. I know he then got injured, but I think as signings go, he was very good. You can't help the injuries, I guess, but he was a very good signing. And again, Nigel doesn't, has got no influence over the injuries. So, yeah, very good signing, Alfie Kilgore. Shame he's now just left the club. But Lewis Page was signed from Harrogate. Completely didn't work out. Barely played. Got injured a lot. Yeah, he's in the terrible players. A lot of people wouldn't even have known who that was. So Lewis Page, unfortunately for me, is in the terrible category. Anthony Hartigan. It wasn't a terrible signing. Just didn't really work for us. He's now proving his worth in the National League. But yeah, it didn't really work out for us, unfortunately. Wouldn't necessarily put him terrible. I think he was a decent player, but yeah, just didn't work out. Scott Flinders. I think Scott Flinders has been a decent signing. I guess you could say he was in the very good. He's been a very reliable backup to Christy Pym. Hasn't played a lot, so I'm not going to put him any higher than I have done. But yeah, a decent signing for the Stags. A good backup. Yeah, I think if there was a good category, higher than decent, he'd be in that. But yeah, it's been a decent signing for us. I don't think we can argue with that. So we're moving on to sort of players from 23, 24 now, with Flinders, and now into Boateng. I think Boateng again's been a decent signing. They got the hat-trick at Harrogate last season. Has played okay. I wouldn't say it hasn't worked out. It hasn't worked out, I don't think, how he would like it to. But it's been decent. Yeah, it was a good signing. It just hasn't really worked out in the end. But yeah, when he's played, he's been okay. Lewis Brunt signed on loan and has now gone to Wrexham. But for me, when he joined, he was a very good signing for the Stags. Worked excellently alongside Flint. It was only a season. We couldn't do anything more about that. But as the loan signings go, he was he was a great loan signing for us. Maybe if we'd have signed him permanently and he'd still be here, he might go higher up the list. But yeah, a very, very good signing from Nigel Clough. That was getting him on loan. He was just what we needed from Leicester. A really, really good player. Aidan Flint for me goes right to the top alongside the names that you've got that we've got here. Really one of our best players that we've signed in recent seasons, and to sign him on a free transfer like Nigel Clough did, and the way he propelled us to promotion last season is absolutely superb. Shame that he's leaving at the end of this season, but yeah, a really good signing for us. And certainly one of Nigel's best, without a shadow of a doubt. Moving on then to George Williams. It's just not worked out really, has it? He's not played enough games. He's been injured a lot. Obviously had other battles going on at the same time. But yeah, it's not really worked out, unfortunately. I think he was a decent enough signing, just hasn't... It's too many injuries, unfortunately. And for that very reason, I think although I was a massive advocate of George Williams, when he's played, he's never let us down, but just hasn't worked out. He's just been injured too much, unfortunately, for me. So, sorry, George. Aaron Lewis, for me, is decent. Similar to Hiram Boateng, he's been okay. He's had moments of brilliance, absolutely. But, yeah, decent, I think. I'd be very reluctant to put him any higher. But he's still at the club, so there's absolutely a chance he can turn into a very good signing. But for me, it's a decent signing from Newport. Callum McDonald hasn't worked out. Again, been injured a lot, and hasn't been fancied a lot by Clough. So, yeah, unfortunately for me, he's in the didn't work out category. Bailey Cargill is next on our list. He's been a very good signing for the Stags. He could very easily become legendary if he stays a few more seasons. He's been superb. Probably my top three of this season as well. Was great last season, albeit did have a couple of injuries. But all in all, Bailey Cargill's been a fantastic signing for the Stags. So credit to Nigel for getting that one done. He was, very good player, and absolutely deserves to be high up on this list. Tom Nichols. For that one goal alone at Forest Green, he kind of deserves to be up here. But looking back, it was a really poor signing. Unfortunately, just been released on a free. Just wasn't a great signing, and it hasn't worked out at all. So unfortunately for me, I'm going to put him in the bottom category. Sorry, Tom. Matthew Craig hasn't worked out. I wouldn't say he's been terrible. He hasn't really played. But you know what? I think I'm going to put him terrible. It's not been a good loan spell at all, has it? He's played a couple of games, scored a goal, got injured, hasn't really had any impact on the results. Joined in just before a terrible spell, and then took us through the entire terrible spell as well. So yeah, not a good signing, unfortunately. And he's going to be joined, unfortunately, by another player from this season in Ben Waine. Yeah, it's not been good. When he's played, he's looked very lightweight, and yeah, just not been good enough. Scored a goal at Exeter and was delighted to see how much it meant to him. But yeah, it's not been. If you look at it as a whole season loan, when we could have had other players in, we were lacking up front. He still didn't get a game, so for me, a terrible signing, unfortunately. Caelan Vickers. It's difficult to judge a 6-month loan, I think, for me, but yeah, I think very difficult to judge a 6-month loan. So I'm going to put him in the decent category. If he'd been here all season, maybe it would have been very good. But for me, he only had 6 months, and he was a very good player. But it was a decent loan move for me. Yeah, he's on the borderline. So apologies if people disagree with me, but he's on the borderline there. Jordan Rhodes didn't work out again. Really, really poor for me. Hasn't worked out at all. So, and he's left the club. He's now been released by Blackpool as well. Just don't think he's quite got it at this level, at this age. But one of the EFL's best strikers and probably best players as well. So, unfortunately, we haven't seen the best of him at Mansfield at all. Moving to Ben Quinn, Stephen Quinn's nephew. I'm not going to put him in terrible. I think for a young lad, he showed a bit of promise early on. But it just hasn't worked out, and he's been released. I would have liked to have seen him stayed for another season, maybe tried to get a loan signing just to get him out on the pitch somewhere and just see what happens. But unfortunately, it's just not meant to be. But yeah, it didn't work out for me. Not necessarily a terrible signing, because he wouldn't have cost a lot. It didn't cost anything. Signings are free. Wages wouldn't have been high. So for me, it's not a terrible signing like some of the others. But yeah, just unfortunately hasn't worked out for Ben. Fraser Blake Tracy, for me at the minute, and he's still here, but it hasn't worked out. Good player, but just been injured far too much for me. Has barely seen the pitch, so I don't think I can put him any higher. I think he'll absolutely prove to be hopefully decent, maybe even a very good signing, I think. But if you take it on the value of the first season, it's not been a good signing. But undoubtedly it is a very good player, and certainly can propel us on hopefully next season. But if you're judging it purely up to now, which is all I can do, then no, I don't think it's been a very good season, a very good signing. Keanu Bacchus has been decent, especially towards the end of the season. Those last 2 games, Peterborough and Exeter, I thought he was absolutely fantastic. Clough started to utilise him at right wing back a bit, which I don't think suits him, but I think further up the pitch. He scored a good goal at Wigan. For me, he's been a decent signing. I think eventually he could go to very good. He's somebody who certainly I think we could sell on for a profit if it comes to that. But yeah, for me at the minute, it's been a decent signing. And then moving on to the last 2, we've got Lee Gregory, who I think has been very good. Without his goals, we would have got relegated. Had he have played the whole season, I have no clue how higher up the table we could have been, but we certainly would have been higher up with Lee Gregory playing, without a shadow of a doubt. Looks like they're renegotiating hopefully for next season. I imagine he probably has got offers, but he has been injured the second half of the season. But yeah, for me, been a very, very good signing. If he stays another season and scores the same amount of goals as next season, then he could very easily be in the legendary category. But yeah, a very good signing. And I'm going to move on to the final signing, which is Deji Ashalaja. Now, I can only judge this off one season. And I'm going to judge it off this season alone. For me, from a free transfer that no one was expecting anything of, he has been a legendary signing. He's won every award at the end of season awards other than one that the owners gave to Bacchus. But Deji Oshilaja has been superb, and I think for his impact this season, again, another one of those players that we would absolutely have, we would not have been staying up in this league had we not have signed Deji Oshilaja. So yeah, absolutely for me, a legendary signing without a shadow of a doubt. The final player on this list then is Will Evans, who for me goes straight into the very good category. It's been a really good signing for me from Newport. Really adapted well to this division and has scored and been our top scorer of the season. Scored some great goals. I think will go on to be a very good player for the Stags, and is without a shadow of a doubt for me a very good signing for Mansfield Town. So let's just recap the list then. At the top, you've got Stephen Quinn, John Joe O'Toole, Davies Keeler-Dunn, Aidan Flint and Deji Oshilaja in the legendary category. And then you can see a little bit further down, we've got George Lapsley, Ryan Sturt, Lucas Akins, Rhys Oates, Elliot Hewitt, Christy Pym, Louis Reed, Alfie Kilgore, Lewis Brunt, Bailey Cargill, Lee Gregory and Will Evans in the very good category. And then you can see we have a plethora of players in the decent, didn't work out, and unfortunately terrible category. Some difficult choices in there actually, you know, and I think some people may have agreed or disagreed with some of those, but yeah, been in a bit of an interesting one putting this list together without a shadow of a doubt. So that's it for the video. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you very much for supporting the channel. The support on the last few videos has been incredible. We've had a lot more subscribers as well, which is amazing. So if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. If you haven't already liked the video, please, if you could click on that little like button, it would really help me out and is massively appreciated. Please also let me know in the comments if there's any players that you think I got wrong, or any players that you would have put in different positions, because it's all about opinions there. So I'd be delighted to hear which ones you would have changed. Thank you very much for watching the video, and we will definitely see you in the next one.